One of the most difficult concepts to talk about is this notion of releasement and appropriation, or what's sometimes aligned with the notion of headlessness or the headless experience that Douglas Harding was talking about. To say that you're not a thing in the world, but your capacity for world, or that body's world. What does that mean? I think it has a spiritual importance. Part of the point is that you're not who you think you are. None of us, right? In our waking lives, when we're walking around, it's very easy to assume that we are just limited to or contained within the surface of the skin. It's as if there is a world that's a thing, and it's just simply a thing, and it's an object that's over against us, and it's like splayed out, and then we walk along and we simply represent the world, and we try to get the world in our heads, and we sort of map it or represent it. And I think we all understand that. We probably live by that metaphor, and it is a metaphor. The metaphor is the world is a thing, and it stands independent of us, and we wend our way through space and time by representing it. Part of the problem, I mean, obviously, is that it underestimates what time is, or how time is related to this thing we call the world. I mean, the world can't be a thing. It's much more complicated than that. And it maybe underestimates some of these issues of how bodies relate to perspective, and how much that is experienced in the world, much that we seemingly look at in the world, is already a product of what we're able to abstract out, that we transact with what's there. There isn't, again, our eyes aren't little windows looking onto what's there, but there are problems of scale and scope and size, and of abstractive process of the different sensory capacities that we have, and the degree to which they miss so much of the potential that could be experienced, but they open to and allow this event of releasement and appropriation. And when I say the event of releasement and appropriation, it's sort of like that's what consciousness is. Consciousness is an event which opens these correlates of bodies over here and world over there. It's not that you ever have a world without a body, and you don't ever have a body without a world. They're both correlates to this event of releasement and appropriation. Now, one of the ways to maybe clarify it is to say that as a metaphor, right? You could use dreams. Now, I don't think that life is a dream, right? Life is so much more than a dream. But if you think about dreams for a second, the structure of dreams helps to clarify the nature of the event of releasement and appropriation. And so you take a dream. When you're dreaming, there is a you inside the dream, and the dream is unfolding through the perspective of the you in the dream. And so in a dream, you're there, and the dream again is unfolding through the you inside the dream. Other people can come up and talk to the you in the dream, maybe even surprise the you in the dream. I don't think we all know it's not uncommon. People can actually have sex with other people in their dreams. Now, what's interesting about that is that the unconscious mind is actually allowing you to project images, simulations of others, I mean, even simulations of yourself, and those representations can be experienced, of other people. They surprise the you in the dream. I mean, it's quite fascinating that we can experience, again, ourselves as the me in the dream, rather than recognizing ourselves as the dream itself. Now, when we wake up, we say, oh, wait, no, I was the dream itself. And again, the point here is that life is not a dream. Life is not a dream, but there's something about the structure of dreams where the dreamer covers over the degree to which they are the dream, and is able to fully participate in the dream by kind of allowing itself to experience the dream through the dreamer in the dream's perspective. I think, again, in a very similar way, we think of ourselves as bodies that are just things within a world. Like the world is a big container and it's just there. And then once we've assumed that we're nothing but this thing that's in a world that's just there, I guess we miss all the ways that we are capacity for world, right? Bodies are worlding, and there's a transaction between the world and bodies, but instead we just think of ourselves as in there and representing it. And then once we do that, it's easy to try to, I guess, make oneself happy by trying to gratify the ego or the self that now one imagines one is, right? If we take ourselves to be just these bodies, well then it makes sense to accumulate goods and acquire properties and feel good about driving a fancy car and all these other things. It's like we imagine that that's who we really are. We think, oh well, I'm really this body, and other people can see me as this body, and then we want to be seen with and affiliated with fancy things, expensive things, I guess products that we think reflect back upon our sense of self and self-esteem. But what we're doing is we're covering over who we really are. Who you really are is the event of releasement and appropriation through which the world itself becomes manifest as a correlate to a body. Think of all the things that couldn't exist without that conscious event of releasement and appropriation. And I think the best, perhaps, is sunrises and sunsets. You are the sunrise and the sunset. That's who you really are. You're the event of releasement and appropriation of the stars in the sky, of vistas of great beauty, of ocean waves. Those aren't things that are there independent of people. They're part of the event of releasement and appropriation that includes bodies as their correlate. It's a very humble paradox, but it's true that perspective makes truth possible for so many things. Now maybe there are some things that we'd want to haggle about, or to what extent do they depend upon perspective. But the way our bodies relate to the larger world, they're not simply representing what's quotes there. And I think the more that people could realize that the fragrance of flowers, rainbows. Rainbows are such a good example, right? There's not a rainbow in the sky. There are different rainbows for different people. All of us see, in fact, a different rainbow, and there isn't a rainbow there independent of perspective. That you are the rainbow that you see. That is, the real you isn't just the body. It's the real you is the correlate of world and body. That there is a kind of spiritual significance that comes from recognizing this larger event of releasement and appropriation. I think there is what's sometimes called the age of the world picture, where people come to imagine, it's an imagined sense of the world as just a thing, and then they're irrelevant to it. They don't see who they really are. It's like the person in a dream who is unable to wake up and unable to recognize that they're the dream itself, but instead they just take themselves to be the dreamer in the dream. There's a kind of spiritual awakening that occurs when a person comes to see that they are the way the world opens to itself, and there is a worlding that all of us equally share in the great riches of possessing sunrises and sunsets as our very being. Okay. Thanks.